I spent the summer in Europe. In the summer of 2018, after moving back home from Texas, I needed to go. My freshman year had just ended, and though there were many amazing moments, all that I could remember were the bad ones. After driving cross country from Erie, Pennsylvania back home to Texas by myself, which is another story entirely, I was consumed with a restlessness that I just could not shake. Now, I don't believe in horoscopes, and I don't use them as an excuse for my lacking behavior, but the adventurous, optimistic, independent, and philosophical sides of a Sagittarius are completely me. For some reason, when I got back home to Texas, I spent a majority of my time working. I was working nearly 50 hours a week for over a month and saving all my money without even realizing it. And one day I finally asked myself, why the f*** am I working so hard? And in that moment, I decided I was going to do something crazy. And the experience proved to be one of the best experiences I've had this far in my life. I, a freshly graduated high school girl, black girl, was going to be traveling through Europe by myself. That was it. Now I had a purpose. I started working closer to 60 hours a week, spending the day at my first job, then working well into the night at my second one. P.S. to anyone looking for a job, delivery service is amazing. It makes a lot of money on the side, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me. By this point, I had saved enough money to buy my plane ticket through Kiwi.com. No, this is not sponsored. I just use that website because they have amazing deals and you can get a lot of flights on the low. My plane ticket turned out to be a little bit under 1,000 USD, which isn't terribly bad considering it's a flight to Europe. My flight had a bunch of layovers, but I didn't really think of that as a bad thing because it was just more opportunity to see more parts of the world that I hadn't seen before. The day finally came for my departure, and my mom made sure to inform my family in the UK that I would be arriving soon. This is probably a good time to tell you that I have family living all over the world. My family mainly comes from Nigeria, and though a lot of them are still back home, many of my aunts and uncles have moved their families elsewhere. Thus, with this trip I was able to save on food, housing, and other things like that you may have to consider if you want to travel. Anyway, the time came for my departure, and me and my best friend Juan loaded up my luggage and set off to Dallas International Airport. I would just like to mention that Juan is the same friend who drove with me from Texas to Erie, Pennsylvania for my freshman year of college move-in. So we stan Juan. He's a great friend. We finally arrived at the airport, and it was time for me to say goodbye to my pal. We were both scared, but the fear was overshadowed by the wonder and excitement that this trip held for me. Now, I'm not going to bore you with my experience through TSA. Just know TSA threw away my big bottle of Eco Styler gel and brand new hydro flask full of water, and I was pissed. The thought of my edges being rendered unlaid for the span of a month put me in a great depression. But that sadness quickly ended whenever my gate started boarding. Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D, we were boarding. Next thing I knew, we were in flight. I don't know what it is, but being in the air is a sort of out-of-body experience. Maybe it's because the things you see will only ever be seen again by those on the same plane with you. Maybe it's because you're close enough to the clouds for them to form snowflakes on the glass of your window seat. Whatever it was, the 7-hour flight from Dallas, Texas to Reykjavik, Iceland became bearable. Iceland was weird. Once we got off the Dallas flight, there were new flight attendants waiting to escort us from Iceland to Paris, France. There were a bunch of hallways and elevators we had to take just to get on a shuttle to another section of the airport, and then wait 20 more minutes in a side lobby for our next plane to come. The flight attendants got a call over their walkie-talkies saying that our plane was ready and that they should open our next gate. I just want to mention that the two flight attendants with us both had olive skin, dark hair, and green eyes. I'll explain more about this in a second. Anyway, so they open the gates and there's this big old purple plane with a backdrop of mountains and the ocean in the distance. It was something straight out of a movie. The olive-skinned attendants said something that I interpreted to mean, "Let's go," and they had us mall walking with our luggage to the steps of the plane. Now, I wish I got more footage of this exact moment because when I tell you it was breathtaking, it was unlike anything I've ever seen so far in my life. The experience was so odd but mesmerizing at the same time. We finally get into the next plane and I find my seat. That's when the water I'd been drinking up to this point finally caught up with me. I can admit I got a bit scared. I was on this big plane with a bunch of aisles, no black people, let alone anyone with a tan, and no restroom in sight. Thinking about how I was alone just made me have to pee more. Somehow I finally got the courage and approached one of the flight attendants and asked, "Where's the restroom?" In unison, 3 tall, blonde-haired flight attendants whipped around and started looking at me. Thinking about this moment kind of makes me laugh because it was as if we were all in shock of each other. They were staring at me just as much as I was staring at them. I don't think they had ever seen a black person before, or at least not one on one of their flights. Their eyes seemed like they were inquisitive, not necessarily in a negative way, but just curious about who I was and where I had come from, and where I was going. I, on the other hand, was extremely uncomfortable. They were like human robots. If you have ever seen the show Humans, just imagine Niska, but times 3. One of the women, with her artificial lab-manufactured blue-colored eyes, looks at me and says in a thick accent, "Over there, behind the pillar." That was my impression of an Icelandic accent, so sorry to anyone from Iceland. I used the restroom and went back to my seat. Every time one of the attendants would come walking towards me with a snack or water, I pretended to be asleep. My whole experience in Iceland honestly still just gives me anxiety. Paris! I had finally landed in Paris. At this point, I had been traveling for over 12 hours consistently, and I was exhausted. I forgot to mention that at some point during my flight to Iceland, I watched the sun start to set and then begin to rise again. That was cool, but the changes in time zones started to really affect my body. Luckily, I had an 8-hour layover in Paris so I could recoup, which I was completely wrong about. The airport security in Paris were so rude. I don't know if it was because I was an American or what, but it seemed like they hated me before I even spoke to them. From being in the crowded transport cars to simply trying to navigate through a French airport, I finally realized how it feels to be a foreigner. Eventually I figured out how to get to check-in, but started to second guess myself whether I should spend my layover in the airport or go explore the city. I'd never been to Paris up until this point, so I felt like that was an opportunity for me to go explore. One of the security in the airport was another black woman, so I walked up to her and I asked, "Excuse me, do you think I have enough time to go see the Eiffel Tower? I have a layover in Paris and my flight doesn't leave until tonight." She didn't answer, so I said again, "Do you think I have enough time to go see some of the city?" She just nodded yes. I don't think she understood what I was saying, so I didn't go see the city. The last thing I needed was to get lost and stranded in Paris. So I trudged on, grabbed all my luggage, went through check-in, and finally made it to security. This is where my Americanness started to show. There was one guy who I guess had to do a second check, and in the process, he tried to start chatting me up. I think he noticed my short and blunt answers, which were because I was so tired and exhausted, but instead of leaving me alone, he took them as a go-ahead to keep teasing me. "Heh, where you headed?" "London." "Can I come with you?" "No." Soon another female TSA worker came and saved me because my encounter exchange with the guy started to back up the line. She took me to the next agent whose job was to frisk me down and check my luggage for any bad stuff. The new agent I saw noticed my water bottle, which I had to buy in Dallas because the Dallas TSA workers threw away my hydro flask. This Paris TSA worker told me again that I need to get rid of my water. The bottle was only half full of water, so I asked him if I could just keep it so I don't have to spend more money on another bottle. He acted like he couldn't hear me, so I, defeated, started chugging down the rest of the water. Mid-gulp, I hear him yell, "Hurry up!" I stop drinking and just stare at him. In that moment, I forgot that I was in a foreign country because I was just so consumed with rage and disgust. I didn't know what my facial expression looked like, but the woman who had rescued me earlier came back chuckling at my obvious distaste for the way the man yelled at me. She directed me to my new gate and I began to look for food. Everything was either fancy, came in itty bitty micro portions, or looked like it would give me a cavity within the first few bites. I walked up to some younger looking people at a macaroon stand and I asked them if they knew where a McDonald's or burger spot was within the airport. They laughed and told me there isn't one. How do you not have a McDonald's at an airport? I walked away sad and eventually wandered into a vegan Starbucks. Honestly, I hated that airport. Paris was not what I thought it would be. So in total, up to this point, I had probably spent about 13 hours traveling. In the next episode, I'll tell y'all about my final flights that I had to take and my experience at Border Patrol for non-UK residents. That line and the wait was probably as long as my trip thus far, so it was absolutely ridiculous. Comment down below if you had any of the same experiences as me in these places, or if you've gone anywhere else that's been as crazy as this experience I had. I want to know your travel stories, so comment them down below in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed the story time. I hope you look forward to the next episode, part 2, and remember to be nice to people. And stay safe, because that's important too. I love you. See you on the next one. Bye!
여기 나보다 큰 사람 있어? 너보다 내가 더 커. 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 너보다 내가 더 커.